Hello and welcome to the first episode of On and Off the Radar. I'm Andy McCray, this guy, and we're glad to have Anthony along too.
That's this guy.
Yeah. Oh, if you haven't heard, Anthony's back. I'm sure you've probably seen him on some of the morning newscasts and maybe a couple of Saturdays here and there.
Right.
Welcome back to the Quad Cities. Tell us again, where have you been?
You know, it's good to be back in the Quad Cities. You know, like Abraham Lincoln, born in Kentucky. I was born in Kentucky. But he claimed Illinois as his home, and I consider the Quad Cities home. So I was here between 2005 and 2017, left in 2017, moved to Panama City, Florida, spent a year there, 2 years in Duluth, and then 5.5 years in central Illinois, down around Decatur.
All right, this is pretty cool. Now, next time I hear of Abraham Lincoln, I'm going to let you know if I think, that's just like Anthony Peoples' story. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. All right, well, the way the show's going to go here, we're going to talk some weather, obviously. That'll be the on-the-radar stuff. We're going to talk some off-the-radar stuff, too. Kind of a casual show here. We're going to do this once a week. It'll be streaming on our app, the Our Quad Cities Plus app, and we're happy that you have found us so far. Again, hopefully you'll look for the shows once a week. All right, so that's what you've been doing over the last few years, the last several years. I don't even want to get into what I've been doing. We want to talk about all that drama over the last 5 or 6 years or so. We'll leave that out.
Oh, drama's good.
Maybe that'll be well off the radar, maybe when we don't have all these cameras around. But anyway, good to have you back. So some of the things we're going to talk about, some community events that are coming up. We have something that we like to sponsor here at the television station and at our Quad Cities. The stations of our Quad Cities. We always help out our good friends at Big Brothers Big Sisters. The putt around's coming up in early February. That's always a fun time, and I look forward to that. And Anthony, coming up here in the next week or two, I'm anxiously awaiting. I'm going to become a big brother for Big Brothers Big Sisters, so I can't wait to get my match. Looking forward to that.
And this is the first one.
Yeah, this will be the first time I've done it. You know, I do Over the Edge every summer and try to raise a whole bunch of money from them or for them. There's a lot of great people at Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Mississippi Valley, so I feel like it's time. A lot of people have recommended it, and here we go. We're going to get that started in the next week or two. And something else, Junior Achievement, their Bowl-a-thon, that's coming up in the not too distant future. We like to help out with that. Couple of great organizations here in the Quad Cities.
You know, that's the nice thing about our job. You know, people know us from delivering the weather in good weather and bad when severe weather is happening, but we do a lot of things out in the public, and I know you have done so much volunteer work over the past years. You've been awarded for it, and so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And you know, I like doing public events too, you know, even if it's walking the runway, which I am not prepared to do, but I love doing public events, speaking to people and just reaching out to the people that invite us into their home every morning for me and every evening for you.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. We have a calendar up in the Weather Center where we just keep track of everybody's days off, you know, Anthony and me and Sean, just so we're not trying to take time off at the same time. And it seems about every other Saturday on there, Anthony's got something where it says AP event, you know, letting us know that you wouldn't be able to work that Saturday because you're out emceeing or walking the runway or whatever it might be.
Well, I'm looking forward to you know, getting back into the community here because again, during my years here between 2005 and 2017, I consider it home, and I love getting out and meeting the people that again invite us into their home.
I know a lot of these people very happy to have you back, including a lot of us right here at the station. Okay, so let's talk a little bit weather over the last week or so. It's been interesting. You know, we didn't really get a ton of snow, but we've had a lot of cold and wind over the last week.
And you know, I, being a meteorologist, would much rather have a foot of snow or deal with, you know, several snowstorms back to back than to deal with the wind chills and the bitter cold temperatures that we have seen over the past week.
Yeah, it's been brutal. We were definitely not alone either. At one point, we had 45 out of 50 states. This is one of our graphics here. It's number one. 45 out of 50 states in the United States had some kind of winter weather alert, whether it was for snow or ice or extreme cold. That's what we had. And this is what the map looked like at one point about a week ago. And actually then Florida, they actually got one of their own warnings. So it ended up 46 out of 50 states at the same time were under some kind of a warning.
And you know, this was a mammoth storm that, you know, we saw it coming well in advance. So even people from the Southwest, there were warnings in place from Arizona and New Mexico all the way to New England for winter weather, snow and ice. And we saw heavy ice across the Mid-South and the South. the numbers of power outages there. And they're not prepared for winter storms like we are. You get a few inches of snow or a quarter of an inch of ice, and it causes a lot of problems for the South.
Yeah, Nashville, they had a real issue with ice. There were people without power for days and days and days. And yeah, Kentucky got it pretty bad. Your home state, and Abraham Lincoln's home state too, I've learned.
And I was in Kentucky last weekend. I took a few days off, and it was originally going to be Thursday through Sunday, but because of the winter storm, I thought, how bad would it look if a meteorologist gets stuck in a winter storm? Like, you didn't see that coming. So I moved it up a day, and I left Saturday morning right as Kentucky started to get hit hard. Paducah, Kentucky, 8.2 inches. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of snow for us. That was one of their 10 biggest snows on record.
That's wild. One of our coworkers in the sales department here, she and her husband were going down to Louisville. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Close enough anyway.
It depends on which part of the state you're from.
And they had to go for something, and I told them, you have to get out of there as quickly as possible. So they ended up driving back. I think it was Saturday. I forget which day the storm was hitting down there. I think it was Saturday. And they said it was a very slow drive back, but they were glad to get out because they could already see these Southerners having issues with the snow. So again, we had all the cold temperatures and the cold wind chills. In fact, check this out. Some of our wind chills were around 40 below. This was incredible. 37 and 38 below at the airports.
After spending a couple years in Duluth, Minnesota, having wind chills of 40 below, that's just another day in the Northland and the Northwoods. But those are dangerous because when you get levels at 30 below zero or colder, it only takes 5 to 10 minutes for frostbite if you're not properly dressed to set in.
Yeah, I forgot you had that time in Duluth. We have some coworkers in the newsroom, spent some time in North Dakota, and they also jokingly said it wasn't that big of a deal, but even if you've lived in a climate like that, it is still a big deal, so you're right about that. Those were some of the coldest wind chills, and then we had another stretch here, 41 hours straight when the wind chill was below zero. That's graphic number 10 here. It was a long stretch of it, below zero, and then even when it did let up, it didn't let up for long. We have another one here, number 3, 127 out of 133 hours, the wind chill was below or at zero.
Now what that means is that, when you get the sunshine and maybe temperatures moderate a little bit before the next blast of cold air, you get a chance to get reacquainted or acclimated. Whenever you have that long stretch of days and days and days of relentless cold and dangerous wind chills, your body and even your heating systems cannot adapt quickly to them.
Yeah, it's tough. And the way it works with the wind chill, when that wind is blowing, believe it or not, if it's not real windy, your body creates this little extra layer right around it where it keeps the temperature, not too bad, or it's basically just as cold as whatever the temperature is. When you get the wind blowing, it removes that little layer, so you get the mixing and you don't get the benefit of that kind of, we'll say, body heat just staying right by your skin. So it makes it harder for your body to try to stay warm, so it makes it feel like it's so much colder. And man, we had plenty of that. For me, I try to take my dog out for a nice little walk every morning. And for me, I would get to a certain point very early in the walk, and then I would make a left turn, and I would be going straight into the wind, and we'd pretty much turn all the way around and wrap that up real quick.
And last Friday morning, when the worst of the cold, when we dropped to 12 below zero, and they had those wind chills of 35 to 45, I was out walking my dog in Kentucky, and I came back in, and I said to my cousin and her husband sitting there, I said, "Do you want the good news or the bad news?" I said, "The good news is, or the bad news is, it feels like 16 degrees outside. It was 27 degrees there." I said, "The good news is, in the Quad Cities, it's 40 below zero, the wind chill." So, don't complain to me when you walk out and it feels like 16 degrees.
And then, now that we're talking about our dogs too, this should maybe be part of the weekly show, an update on Xanadu.
Xanadu.
And, so that's good. And then a lot of people know my dog. I have Precious from Quad City Animal Welfare Center. She was there for a long time. They were having a hard time finding a home for her. They needed a house that didn't have kids and didn't have other pets. So I said, this is more than 2 years ago. She had been heartworm positive. She had been diagnosed with cancer. So they told me I was, going to just foster her. And hey, I'll foster her for as long as possible. It's been more than 2 years. Precious is doing good. And yeah, we'll have dog updates maybe each week as well. We'll throw some of those pictures up too.
Well, with Precious, you're a big kid, so I guess she's adapting to kids rather well.
Yeah, no, it's gone very well for sure. All right, last thing before we take a quick little break here, something I wanted to tell you about. Every Monday through Friday on our Quad Cities News at 5 and 6, we play weather trivia. This is something we've been doing for 15 or 17 or 18 years, something like that. I've done the math. I think we've given away something like $200,000 worth of prizes. There are prizes. There is a winner every single day. It's real simple. You see the question on Facebook, on the local 4R Quad Cities news page. You'll see it on my page if I'm working, or Sean's page, or on Anthony's page if he's filling in. And we asked the question. Here's one of the questions from this week. We'll show you one of them, number 8, and then we'll show you our graphic number 9 here. All you have to do is answer it on Facebook. If you get it right, you are entered into a random drawing to see if you are the winner. And again, every single day there's a prize worth at least $25. Sometimes the prizes are worth $200, $250 or so. So let's see, what question do we have up right now? Our total snow for the month of January is going to end up, well, you know this one. We're going to talk about it here in a couple of minutes, but go ahead and give us a little preview. It's not even close, is it?
It's not even close. And you know what's interesting is, last year you had such a meager winter when you only ended up with 8.2 inches of snow. We had more snow last January than we have this January.
Yeah, strange how that works out. Yeah, so that was one of the trivia questions. We're going to give you some of those snow stats here in just a couple of minutes. We'll take a quick break and we come back. Plenty more on episode 1 of On and Off the Radar.
Well, welcome back to part 2 of On and Off the Radar. I'm APeoples, Chief Meteorologist McCray, and this is something we're to start doing every week. We're not just giving you a forecast like you see us do in the morning and at night. We're just sitting here talking about life, talking about weather, stuff that we may not have time to talk about on air because we have a certain time. We have to get point A to the 7-day, 10-day forecast. So this gives us a chance to talk more about the weather.
We don't have any producers in our ear wrapping us up right now. That's a good thing. Our producer is Gabe. He's going to be with us most of the time. He's right off the camera over here, pushing a couple of buttons. Job well done so far, Gabe. Way to go. And one thing too, so Anthony just an hour ago before we were starting this said, okay, so what's the name of the show? We said On and Off the Radar. He goes, I think that's what it was when I was here before, many years ago. And Caleb, one of the supervisors here, kind of in charge of a lot of things, said, well, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right. The only thing that's changed, hair's a little grayer there.
Yeah, here too. Yeah.
That happens. We're still here though.
Understand. Oh, I have a big birthday coming up. Next week, I'll be turning 50 years old.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
50, which means I've spent not quite half of my life working here at our Quad Cities News, but pretty close. I started here in 2002, so a little later this year I'll hit 24 years here.
Well, you know what? I will be the first to say it, that I am so glad that you're still here. I enjoyed working with you from 2013 to 2017. You were my immediate boss. We had a good working rapport, and when the opportunity came up to come back to the Quad Cities and to come back here, I didn't think twice about it.
I think at one point the news director here said, asked me, he's like, hey, what about Anthony? We got to get that guy back. If we can get him back in the mix, back in the fold, I know a lot of us, not just here at the station, but throughout the Quad Cities, happy that we were able to make that happen. All right, before the break, we were talking a little bit about the weather that we've had over the last week. We're going to talk now a little bit more about the winter that we've had so far in the Quad Cities, and then eventually we'll wrap it up with a look ahead to what's coming up over the next week or so. But definitely for us, it's been a lack of snow, but it's been pretty cold, especially in January.
It has been very cold. I mean, you talked about the lack of snow. We started out with gangbusters at the end of November, first part of December with that big snowstorm. November ended up being one of the snowiest on records, and now this January, where is the snow? But it has turned cold. We started out the month really warm. At one point on January 9th, temperatures were running 10.7 degrees above average. Then after last Friday and the bitter cold settled in, we're now running below average, and that's where we're going to end the month of January, with temperatures below average and snowfall below average.
Yeah, you've been keeping good track of these stats here. We have them, January turned cold, I think was the name of the graphic. So you've been keeping good tabs on that. The way it works, when Anthony uses some graphics in the morning for our morning newscast, I'll see those as, have been recently been updated or whatever. So it's always good to see that running tally. Those are those numbers. And the snow, you're right, for the season to date, we've had about 20 inches or so far. This is graphic number 11. But a lot of that fell very early in the season, and like that weekend in November you mentioned.
And even in the second part of December, we had that very warmish Christmas holiday. So no threat of a white Christmas this past Christmas, but where is the snow? And eventually it's coming because in the Quad Cities, February and March can be very snowy.
Yeah, so we'll see how the rest of the season goes. January highs, though, we pull up this graphic number 4 here. It was 61 degrees on one of the days earlier in January. That was incredible. It wasn't quite a record high, which was a little surprising, but we've gone from that to then later in the month we had highs that were only 2 degrees on the 23rd, 4 degrees on the 24th, and it's been below normal now for a week straight at the time of this recording, but we should be able to turn that around hopefully next week. Let's talk about the snow numbers in January as far as the least snowy ever. We're not going to be the least snowy ever, but as of right now, we're on the list anyway. This is another graphic you made the other morning.
That's right. We've only had 1.7 inches of snow officially in the Quad Cities for the month of January, and that ranks at number 10. So that means there have only been 9 other winters that had less. One other had 1.7. But check out, when we look at that graphic, number 1 and a trace of snow. Can you imagine just
all
having
31
a trace
days
of snow?
Only a trace. Yeah, that's a good graphic, number 13. Yeah, very interesting. So again, one of the least snowy Januaries that we've ever had here in the Quad Cities. Let's see, one more chance for snow over the weekend, but that's actually more so Sunday, which I know my birthday's February 3rd, Tuesday, and that makes Sunday February 1st.
That's right. So it will be for the February total. And at this point in the game, it doesn't look to be a big snow, but when you've only had 1.7 inches for the entire month of January, an inch or two might be a big snow.
Okay, so this is episode 1. We're going to work out some of the kinks or whatever. Obviously, one of those is I cannot tell when we have a graphic up and when we don't have a graphic up. So if you see me looking off the screen here, that's why. I don't know if we've shown this one yet. Number 11, it's the snow season to date. Last year, you see all the way down to the bottom, it was only 8 and change. That's the least snow that we've ever had. The record high, 69 and change. That's obviously out of reach. Still a chance that we could get up to normal, which is now right around 36 inches of snow for the season in the Quad Cities.
That's right. So if you look at that 36.1, 2/3 of the way would be about 24 inches, 2 feet of snow. So we're not yet 2/3 of that total. But again, we still have February. Now, January is typically our snowiest month on average with 10.8 inches. But, whenever we start to warm up a little bit in late February, in March, you can get some hefty amounts of snow when a system comes in.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes going forward. One thing we have not been lacking, especially recently, cold temperatures and cold wind chills. Here's a tally on the below 0 days that we've had so far this season. We'll put that graphic up. And we've already outdone the number from last season. And again, there's still a chance, obviously, plenty of winter to go. We could have more days that are below 0.
And we've had a lot of windy days. You probably noticed that because we talked a lot about the wind chills along with the bitterly cold temperatures. We've had a lot of wind this season too.
Yeah, those days, a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust, that's noticeable. That's been happening. We had some stats here from the National Weather Service. About 75% of the time over the last 3 weeks or so, half of the time, we've had 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. And then we had one day when there was a 51-mile-an-hour wind gust. So that is very windy. And clearly, over the last couple of weeks, Anthony, that has not been a warm wind.
Yeah, and it's much different when you have a 30 to 40 mile per hour wind when you had that 61 degree early January day. But whenever you have 12 below 0 and you have those 30 to 40 mile per hour winds, that's when it becomes life-threatening and dangerous.
Yeah, you can feel it in a hurry. One of those times I was out with Precious, again, we were only outside for a couple of minutes, and I was layered up, so I felt pretty good everywhere that was covered up, but it's kind of hard to, cover the tip of your nose, so that's where I felt it, and it does get painful in a hurry. All right, so that's some of the weather stats here for our winter so far in the Quad Cities. We do see at least a little bit of a turnaround, even this weekend. Get you our Snowstar weekend forecast now, number 14. Even this weekend, we're starting to see a little bit of a turnaround.
Yeah, there is a system, the European model. We talk about the European models. We talk about the American models. The European model was very consistent with that big snowstorm that hit the South. And it's been very consistent with the snow coming in on Sunday. So Saturday looks to be a perfect day if you're heading out to go skiing. A high temperature around 23 and up to 29 on Sunday with that snow coming in. Right now it looks to be afternoon and night. And then, as Andy mentioned, it starts to look a little bit more unsettled because we might have another chance coming up maybe Tuesday night and Wednesday.
Yeah, so a couple of chances coming up. Now, some of us, we don't love the cold weather. It makes it kind of tough. I do love it for our friends at Snowstar, though. This is pretty awesome. Some of the winters here recently have not been good for business, but even though we haven't had a ton of snow here lately, it's been cold enough to make snow, and that's what they do for their tubing hill. That's a blast, and the ski hills are pretty good at Snowstar, too. So very happy for our friends there in Andalusia that they've been able to make a good amount of snow, a good base right now. Happy about that. Have you ever done the tubing hill?
I have not. I have been on a sled. I've been sledding before, but I have not made it to Snowstar yet. So, I still have another month or two before the season ends.
Yeah, that's great. And the tubing, again, that is a piece of cake. You get a ride basically back up to the top. It's fail safe. I mean, there's almost nothing that can go wrong, and you move pretty good going down that hill. So again, real happy about the snowmaking capabilities that they have at Snowstar. So that's just the beginning of a little bit of a warm up you saw there by Sunday with the chance for snow, upper 20s. Check this outlook out here. This is number 5. This comes from the Climate Prediction Center. It's a branch of the National Weather Service, and every day they update a 6 to 10 day forecast and an 8 to 14 day forecast. And you can see here our 6 to 10 day forecast. So we're about a week and a half from now, depending on when you're watching this on the Our Quad Cities Plus streaming app. We're likely to be a little bit above normal here, and that's a good thing. Places off to the east, they're going to still be dealing with it. They have a nor'easter likely this weekend, so they're going to get hammered again with some snow. But here, again, a little something to look forward to if you want to break from the cold.
Especially since we've had that bitter cold since last Friday. And when we talk about being above average, that may not mean 50 degrees because the average high this time of the year is around 32, 33 degrees. So, that could have us above the freezing mark, which is something we haven't seen since last Friday.
It's funny how it is all relative. Sometimes 32 degrees feels very cold. The next time we hit 32, which will be the first time we hit 32 in more than a week, it's going to be feeling pretty good. Something else you probably have noticed, the days getting longer. You notice it in the morning, no doubt. We notice it in the evening. Here we're hanging on to a little bit of daylight even till around 6 o'clock or so in the evening. What's it like in the morning? What time does the sun come up these days anyway?
I don't know because we're doing the show from 5 to 9, but we start to notice the reflection off the Mississippi River when we have sunny days during the 7 o'clock hour. It makes a difference because, when you have this bitter cold that we've been experiencing lately and it's cloudy and overcast, it just makes, people have seasonal affective disorder.
It's a real thing for sure.
It is, and when you have that sunshine, even if you have to look at it out the window because it's so bitterly cold outside, it does perk you up a little bit.
Yeah, the blue skies, we've had some sunshine this week. It looks very good. It looks very nice. So that does kind of lift you up at least a little bit. Funny thing also, as cold as our temperatures have been, we kind of tie a lot of this weather stuff in together now. As cold as our temperatures and wind chills have been, if there was snow on the ground, we would have been 10 and 15 degrees colder than it actually has been. So a little bit of relief that it wasn't even worse.
Yeah, we noticed that earlier this week because we had very cold temperatures, but where central and southern Illinois picked up 5, 10, 12 inches of snow, they were colder than we were when you're talking 3 hours south of here, and it was because of that snowpack that they had.
Yeah, definitely a little bit unusual and a little bit okay with a lot of people around the Quad Cities, I'm sure. It was absolutely cold enough. All right, well, we're just about to wrap up this first episode. If you have some comments, some suggestions, if you have some, you can send those to me. That would be great. If you have some complaints, send those to Anthony. He would love to filter through them.
And strangely enough, my email is AMcCray at WHBF or ourquadcities.com. So reach out to me there.
Bizarre how those wires got kind of crossed up. No, seriously though, reach out to one of us on Facebook or email. That's great. Give us a call at the station. However you want to get in touch with us. This is a new thing, clearly. We're just kind of getting our feet wet. I look forward to it. We're going to visit every Thursday around noon or so, and then this will air a few times, and then I think it'll just live on forever on the Our Quad Cities Plus streaming app. All right, episode 2 next week. You going to be ready to go?
We will be prepared, and we'll talk about Groundhog Day some next week. How about that?
There you go. Sounds good. Hopefully, we'll see you then.